having fun? Welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and today I'm excited to get to continue the playthrough of ISS Vanguard from Awaken Realms. We are currently on the planet Pellucid, and if you haven't checked out my first and second part of my showcase, I'll put a link to that in the top right-hand corner so you can get caught up to where we are right now. As you can clearly see, we've discovered much of what's going on here on the left-hand side, but we haven't checked out the right-hand side of this planet board. Now, just before we begin this round of play, I do want to make one quick update or correction to something that happened inside of part number 2. There isn't a major gameplay impact whatsoever, but it is certainly worth noting. During part number 2, we got a card called Alien Data Vault, and it's a planetary exploration card. It says when you gain this discovery, you may flip the incomplete rank up card to the completed side. So I'm going to go ahead and actually do this, and I'll show you why. As you can see on the rank up card, it is currently incomplete. There are ways for this to flip over. One is mentioned right on it. Also, of course, you get a number of success tokens based on the rank. Again, that can flip it over, but because we got that Alien Data Vault card, we can flip this over and complete it right now. And honestly, I'm not going to complain about that. We might as well take advantage of it, and at this point, we can dive right into our round of play. We're going to start this round off with Rika, and she is going to, for her first action, she's going to move, and looking at the icon here, we take a look at the global condition card for travel. We can choose to spend any die of any color, or we can roll the danger die in order to move to this next sector. So I simply went ahead and spent one of my dice. I ended up choosing the blue die. I don't know if I'll regret that later. We do have 2 red, one of them's off camera here, and a green. And at this point, we're going to go to log 15, as it mentions on the sector.
The scans were correct. There are several interesting sites in this sector.
I've grabbed 3 of all P113 cards. So these are 3 points of interest card relating to the exact same location. We're going to place one at random in the place where Rika currently is. We'll reveal it in a moment. It's also worth mentioning, of course, as you saw in prior episodes, the sector is fully explored, as mentioned in the app, only when you reveal a card with the flag icon in the top right-hand corner. And it appears this sector has a medical wing. The ruined facility contains a bewildering plethora of organic remains and biological hazards. Adequate protection is advised. It says here we can do, as a special action, inspect the remains. I've gone ahead and assembled my dice pool, all coming from Rika. She does have 1 red die remaining in her available area. I'm kind of keeping that just in case we need something to spend or exhaust down the line. I think what I have here in the roll pool will be enough, because if we're just rolling off the red and the green, we can satisfy at least the green row, and that will get us to log 32. But there is a stipulation or constraint inside this roll, and that is if you have no shields in your roll pool, then you resolve the red, which has us getting exhausted injury. So that's the reason why I brought this specific red die into the fray. Of course, I could potentially use cards that I have in my hand also to re-roll the red die if I need to. The injury die, well, we'll see how that pans out, and I have ways to mitigate that too. So I think this is a pretty good roll pile to use. We're going to go ahead and roll it off and see how this pool ends up. Now, in terms of Andrew, he could technically throw a die into here, but I think this is not the right time to be using a charge for that. We'll save that ability for him to help and assist from another sector for later on. For now, let's go ahead and roll these off and see how we do. I'm hoping for the best result, but I got a funny feeling it's probably not going to pan out like that. Oh, definitely not. Now that, my friends, is what you call an absolutely terrible roll. I got 2 accident results across the red and the green die, and I also got an icon on the injury die that does match the wounded symbol too. So let's try to see what we can do to manipulate the dice at this point, because this is all around bad. Maybe I can salvage myself at least into the green row, but we need to get ourselves a shield on the red die. So I'm using this card right now. During a dice check, we can re-roll the red die and hope for the best, because, well, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Come on, shield, where are you? There we go. Rika's also going to use another card here to re-roll the injury die, hoping for a better result than what we got the first time around. And we got the exact same result. Now, something worth mentioning around injury dice is the fact that, as of right now, pretty streamlined, because I only have 1 actual injury, which is a wound, that put the injury die into my dice check, and I rolled it, and ended up matching, and I wasn't able to mitigate it. So because of that, I've placed it on the leftmost card. Now, if I had, let's say, 2 injuries, and I had 2 injury dice as part of my dice check, which I would, then I'd roll them, and based on the icons I get, I would get to choose which icon icon goes on the leftmost card and then continue on down the row. The reason that's important is strategically you can actually place an injury die on cards in a way that might benefit you. In other words, not punish you as much. You won't see that here right now because I don't have enough injuries to show it to you, but that's the idea behind it. So in this case, we do have to spend a die. So thankfully, because I thought ahead and left a die in my available pool area, I was able to spend that to satisfy this right here. And again, this is going to end up going back into one of the columns here when we're done resolving all of our dice check here. But the one thing I want to mention too is that, say for instance, I was really greedy and the red die that was here that I just spent actually was part of my dice check in general. The downside of not having a die in the available area to be able to spend, especially when an injury triggers, like this one that just happened, is you're going to have to sacrifice a die. So that's the kind of gamble you got going on if you decide to go that route. Now you might be wondering, well, what do you do with this accident symbol here? Sometimes it's not going to have any negative effect, but typically accident icons are something you don't really want to be rolling, especially if the actual POI or sector or area that you're exploring actually has the icon represented with a negative consequence. So you're typically trying to avoid those. And in this case, I wanted to avoid it on the red die strictly because I wanted to guarantee I had the shield in order to not to fall into this exhausted injury category. So because I have a green die and a red die, and I've satisfied what I need to at a bare minimum, I am definitely on the green row here. And so we're going to put those dice in the spent area. We're going to resolve this going to log 32.
Voice log 13F. I'm entering the underground. The charred walls seem to absorb the light. Starting to regret that I went in alone. There are remains here. Dozens of bodies in many strange shapes and sizes. It's bewildering and upsetting. I look over my shoulder and half expect one of them to move. Some cadavers show signs of major bionic and cybernetic modifications. They must all belong to different species. All surviving equipment seems adapted to various operators of different body shapes. How did so many intelligent species end up on one planet? We haven't found any proof that this was a spacefaring civilization. I'm leaving this place. There's nothing more for me to see, but I have several questions for later. Did all these species evolve on this planet simultaneously, or were they brought here somehow? How did they manage to live together peacefully? We should be on the lookout for more clues, especially something that could hold any pieces of their communication.
At this point, we found another interesting place in the area, so we're going to remove this card from the game and replace it with another one of the random P113 cards. We only have 2 left, so one of them is going on the board. This one is called Buried Signal. This mountain of charred rubble comes alive as the beacon-like signal sounds deep beneath it. And we'll have to leave this for another time because that is going to end the turns available for Rika. She's done 2. She's going to draw an event. She got the event called Detached. However, we're going to be looking at the top portion of the card only because the icons do not match on the POI card or the sector. So it's going to be a time track increase by 1. So this time track is increasing and getting closer to us replacing this card with GO2. Andrew's going to begin his turn. He was extremely lucky, and part number 2 had a ton of rolls go his way and everything really going well. So hopefully that will continue here, but I wouldn't be surprised if things start taking a turn for the worse. We do have 3 dice in the available area, so not bad there. But as you can see, the requirement to leave this area and head onwards is going to be 2 spent dice. Andrew decides to continue exploration of the planet Pellucid. He spends 2 dice from the available area, moves to log 16 in the new sector.
We're passing the ridge of solidified lava.
Don't forget to gather samples. It may tell us something about the composition of the planet's core. It might be somehow related to this crystal.
Wait, there's a whole field of antennae up ahead. They are humongous.
Perfect place to scavenge some alien tech. Define humongous, away team.
At least several times larger than our Earth's vast telescope. Diameters measured in kilometers.
Andrew completes his first action of 2 and finds an ultra-large array. It says this forest of enormous antennae indicates this civilization tried to communicate with someone or something. We don't have many dice to work with, so we're going to go ahead and take a rest action at this point. We're going to go ahead and replenish 3 dice. Again, when resting, you're taking the total number of available dice that you have across your available and your spent pool, which is a total of 6 right now. You get half that rounded up. So in this case, 3 dice back. And just like that, we're all squared away. We're also spending a supply off the Space Ranger track, and we're drawing a card up from our sector deck, and we got Stroke of Inspiration. And as we already have one of those in hand, I'm happy to discard this one. Well, this certainly doesn't sound good. A hurricane. Do any of these icons match? Well, luckily, taking a look across them, none of them do. So a hurricane does not occur in that location. That's pretty lucky, seeing as there were so many icons across that event card. But instead, the time tracks are going up. So we'll go ahead once more and push this up the track. We've only got 3 more positions before that's replaced. We're going to jump into our next round of play, and instead of Rika starting, we're going to move the start token over here to Andrew and begin where we left off. He is going to be trying to study the array. Now, unfortunately, between the 2 crew members that I have, neither one of them actually have these 2 icons, so there's no way I'm getting the alien tech leads off of this one, but I can still try to get the 1 blue and 2 of any other color. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is spend, still a tough call here, but I think I'll go ahead and use green and 2, well, let's keep the double vanguards. Let's do blue, red, and green for this one. All right, let's see how we do. We really don't need any results off of this to be anything in particular, so having all of these accidents is not that bad. Now, it's kind of funny because we ended up rolling this icon, which we could use for a mineral lead, but then, of course, we'd have to go ahead and spend it, and we wouldn't have it to be able to complete this bottom portion down here, which required at least 1 blue and then 2 of any color. So we do succeed at studying the array. All 3 of these dice are going to go back to the pool. We'll resolve this, gaining a success token and replacing this with P115. Now this looks interesting. We have the array control room. It says the mainframe controlling the array is too large to move and extremely complex. Here for a dice check, we can decipher the alien systems. If you have a unique discovery 3, you may treat any of the standard results as a specific result, as mentioned there, which is a good thing because that would have the track, or I should say the marker, progressing on the track towards the successful outcome of log 250. For my final action with Andrew, I think I'm going to rest again. Now, our supplies are currently at 3, so if I rest, that will be dropping down to 2. We get another sector card, and we're bringing back 3 of the 6 total dice. Here's a look at the card that I pulled from my sector deck. I got Respite. I chose to discard Specialized Tools, so we got 3 cards in hand now. Also very cool because the 3 dice I was able to pull from my spend pool back in my available area have a focus on the symbols, which can be, if I have Unique Discovery 3, as indicated right here, as I mentioned moments ago, I can use these results as the icon, which will allow me to move the marker along the green row so we can really do a big roll next turn and see if we can push this all the way to a success. That'll end off Andrew's turn. We're now moving to the event card. It's a strange microbiome, and you'll see here in the top, do we have any icons that match the ones in our sector or POI card? We do not. So again, the time tracks are going up by 1. That time is slipping away really quick. Now, speaking of resting, and speaking of our lack of supplies as they start to dwindle because we've rested so much, we've gone from 6 down to 2. We only have 2 more rests that we can accomplish before we have to go down the exertion road. If we do exertion in a situation like this for Rika, I could sit there and say I have no available dice right now and I want to get a ton back. I could just take 1 die out of the equation. I don't think will be useful for the rest of this exploration. Again, it comes back later on, but not during this planetary exploration. And that's going to allow me to bring back all 5 of these dice into the pool. So your overall total pool is going to start diminishing over time, but that's one quick way to get a lot of dice back. And you can do that exertion at any point. That doesn't count as an action like resting is. So that's another key thing to remember. So you can exert yourself in order to kind of get a bunch of dice back to maybe help you in a situation, but it's going to cost you as your dice total is going to change. So we don't need to be that aggressive. We're probably just going to do a basic rest. So we're going to go ahead and spend 1 supply here in order to get back some dice, and we'll be pulling back 3 for Rika. So Rika ended up pulling a card from her section deck, Focus, which will add into her hand. She has Safety Protocol as well, and then she brought back these 3 dice. Now, something worth noting on this POI card that's different than the way it was set up in prior ones that we've seen is where we have a yellow row and a green row, but there's no arrows connecting them. In other words, if I choose to take my dice pool, roll it, allocate it to the yellow result, getting the best thing at the top, it doesn't just automatically result in us going to log 22 because there's no arrow pointing down between them. So keep your eye on stuff like that because it will change over time. In this situation, we have to choose which track we want to allocate dice to based on our dice roll. So if we were really gunning to get more tech leads, we could be gunning to try and get more gathering icons to make that happen. Of course, Vanguard symbols work for that too. And then the other option is to just go down the successful path of green, which is the default path. And that, of course, could be any die spent of any icon, does not matter. And it's tempting to go after those alien tech leads because if I get 2 more to the one I already have, that's a discovery card. However, that's not really progressing us any further into the story. And again, we have the timer ticking down. Our supplies are ticking down. We do have a resupply option close by though, but there's other things and other factors going on here. So I think what we're going to do is make a roll and try to progress and make our focus on the bottom row for green. So not only do we have our injury die from Rika, we also have a danger die. This is going to be real fun. Okay, here we go. Let's roll these off and see how we do. Also, inside of the danger die icon on the card, it's an A. So we'll be looking at that on the chart to see how things resolve. We got ourselves, oh, blank. That's what I like to see. At this point, we're not going to modify any of the results. We're not going to use any dice combinations or cards. I'm pretty happy with how this roll panned out. Very happy indeed. So the danger die ended up being blank, so absolutely nothing happening here on that side of the equation, which is good. Avoided some nastiness. And on the injury die, we didn't actually get the drop, which would match the wounded card that we have. So this die is going to just go back into the available pool section of my player dashboard at the top slot. So we'll take that out of the equation. We only have 3 dice left, which is going to give us 3 progress on the green area. Now again, I could switch out the Vanguard there and use the Vanguard for the top one if I wanted to, but like I said before, let's focus on progressing things. So we're resolving right now on this bottom one here. So 1, 2, and 3 down the track. That's going to do it for Rika's turn. We're now going to go ahead and draw another event. Oh no, this one's really, really, really bad. Look at the icon match here. A 1 matches the sector that we're currently in, and this one is bad. We have to spend 1 die of each color. This is a huge blow to Rika, and because she doesn't have any dice in her available area right now, and they're all in the spent area, we are going to have to get rid of a die of each color back to her box. Just like that, our character went from being very useful to being very, very restricted. That's pretty brutal indeed. It looks like we might need to have Andrew do the majority of the work here going forward. Let's move into a brand new round. We're going to keep Andrew being the starting individual. I have a plan here to bring Andrew from the control room over here to the resupply depot. We need to get supplies back up. We only have 1 supply left. That means 1 rest, and after that, we're exerting ourselves, and we all know that that's not going to be good. The one thing I want to mention that I feel terrible about now that Rika already had her turn and then got hit with that crazy hard event moments ago is I had this rare alien tech card called Functional Nanodust, which during a dice check, when you're on your planetary exploration, you can actually add a wrench icon or a red and blue die to the roll. So I could have added the red and blue die, discarded this card. That would have bumped the tracker up. At the same time, I went up by 3, by 5 instead. That would have completed the top one up there. And then, of course, the event would have hit. Again, I didn't know the event was going to be as bad as it was, but in hindsight, I feel really, really dumb that I didn't use this in the moment to just complete that top one. But such is life in space, you never know what's coming around the corner, and in this case, we probably do, because we're going to go ahead and move here from this array control room into this area. We just have to go ahead and spend 2 dice. So I'm going to take these 2 dice right here, I'm going to move them over. I'm not concerned about which colors I pick, because once we get in here, we can take an action with any dice color to gain 3 supplies, and we'll have just enough to pull this off. Now, this isn't guaranteed to be a positive either. There is a risk here that this could go south on me. So what I'm going to do is take a second action here. We're going to be rolling these 2 dice, hoping to get results that do not equal an accident. As you can see, an accident will have us going to replacing this card and losing out on any supplies. Granted, I do have the ability to re-roll, so that might save me. Let's go ahead and roll these off and see how we do. Let's see, no accidents. Perfect. We got great results there. And now with this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to gain 3 supplies and we're going to replace the card. Awesome. Okay, this helps me breathe a sigh of relief. Our supplies have gone from 1 to 4. There's nothing interesting here. The flag symbols on the top right letting us know there's nothing we can find here going forward. So we're now done our turn with Andrew. He moved and then he went ahead and did a special action. So his turn is over. The event is coming, and here's what scares me. He doesn't have any dice in his available area either. So if something similar to what just happened to Rika happens to Andrew, I am going to be hurting. So let's see how we do. Seeing the word bomb on any event card instantly gives me heart failure, but instead we lucked out because this icon does not match anything here. It's just going to be an increase in the time track, which for now means we're safe, but the next time this increases, we are going to have a global condition change. The marker's moving on down the track. We are 1 away, as I just mentioned. Let's go ahead and move on to Rika's turn. Rika definitely needs to rest in order to be productive on this turn, so we're going to go ahead and drop our supplies down to 3. We're going to draw up a section card for her, see what she gets. She gets to keep it because she only has 2 cards in hand. She got nice, the card that allows her to reroll the injury die. What a great one to get in this situation. And again, based on her total dice, she has 3, so she's going to be getting 2 back. The second action, she's going to go ahead and use both of these, including the injury die, unfortunately, and she's going to be rolling a danger die, making her life dangerous. She's going to be trying to push that track further up. So we're going to be rolling these off and see how we do. We'll go ahead and roll our dice for Rika and see how she does to progress the track. Now this die roll I'm pretty happy with, and I'm not going to modify any results currently. I'm not going to be doing any dice combinations anywhere else. So as of right now, we'll resolve the danger die and the injury die. Injury die first. Nothing happens as it doesn't match the injury, and the danger die luckily didn't match anything on the A chart, so we're safe for both of those. Now, luckily, we're also safe because we don't have any alert icons that are going to trigger on the card. So basically, this can be taken as a positive result for these two when we're resolving things. This progression tracker is going to go up 2 spaces as this satisfies moving forward on the track here for green, which will get us all the way down to the very end at log 22.
Vanguard, we are close to the signal source.
Proceed with caution, away team. Our advisors have several conflicting opinions as to what this thing may be. Some insist it is a trap, made to...
We've got it. It's a satellite? Any ideas, Vanguard? It could have fallen from the sky.
No, it's buried too deep. It seems the end of this planet was rather explosive. This piece of the crust must have impacted the satellite in the wake of the explosion. Good find, away team. Grab what you can and continue the mission.
The app tells us to gain an alien tech discovery, so I drawn the top one off the deck. We got flickering hollow projections. This one is going to be something for ship management. We'll be placing it inside the discoveries area right now. The other thing that changed is the actual point of interest card. It changed, even though it looks exactly the same. It's another buried signal card. We have one more P113 card to go through. After this is done, it will change to a nothing interesting card, which we've seen before, the P000, which means we'll have completed everything in this space. And based on our mission, that's exactly what we're aiming to accomplish, as we're trying to clear out everything in this space based on the icon in the bottom right. Now this is going to end off Rika's turn, so we're going to be flipping her token over and drawing an event card, but one thing I need to correct is, remember the resupply depot card, which we had Andrew interact with on his last turn? Well, on that card, in very small font, there was a line underneath of the special action that says you must discard a success token to perform the action. And that occurred moments ago down here, but it was very similar to the resupply depot that's up here that has it right here. It says you must discard a success token to perform this action. It's something I missed, but I just noticed it on the other card, so I want to make sure that I pay the success token I'm supposed to, because I did go ahead and have Andrew on his last turn come here and use it in order to bump up our supplies. So we're going from 4 success tokens down to 3. And every once in a while, the event deck is kind to you. And in this case, it says nothing is going to happen. There's no hazards. We get a breather. Going into this next round is going to be pretty stressful for Rika because, well, she's already injured, which is not good. She has a wound condition. She's only got 3 dice left because she lost 3 of them all in one hit, which was pretty brutal. Now, if she has to lose any more dice in terms of sacrificing a die from this point, or if she was to, say, for instance, be rolling against a chart and didn't have anything in the available area here, needs to spend a die and is forced to sacrifice a die, in all those cases, what's going to end up happening, because she has 3 dice on the dot, thought is you can't go lower than 3 dice. So what ends up happening is you get an exhausted injury, which is going to start compounding across her injury board. And of course, if she gets up to 4 injuries total, she's going to be gone. But each of those are going to make things tougher and tougher. It's also going to bring in another injury die. There's lots of fun stuff there. So she is on the brink of bad news, which is why I'm trying to get her to be as successful as I can up here in this area to move the track. But I'm probably going to have to bring Andrew up to help us out and have him abandon any thought of the array control room because things are going so poorly with Rika. I'm going to go ahead and activate Rika first this round. She's going to use one of her charges because at any time as it states above, spend 1 charge to draw 2 cards from your section deck. I'm going to try to find some cards that I think will be a little bit more beneficial for her, being that she's in a tougher situation. She got this one here, which is a reroll of the green die. If she lands this symbol, the default symbol, discard 1 danger die from your roll pool, so that could be big. Again, she needs to have the die combination to do it. Second card, she got this one, which is a reroll or a refresh. Not bad. I'll have her keep the 2 cards she just got and discarded 2 that I don't think we'll be using anytime soon, at least at the moment. At this point, we need to rest, bring back some dice for her. She's bringing back these dice, and she's going to draw up a section card, and she got Dodge. Now those dodge cards are really handy, so I've gone ahead and discarded one of the dressing cards that I had. We have 2 of them now, which is great. This allows us to mitigate the danger roll, and this is going to be great for her because, well, she doesn't want to gain any more injuries because she's already got it tough enough as it is. Let's go ahead and roll some dice and see how Rika does at the buried signal. Rika's not going to modify the dice using any of the top sections of her cards. I don't even want to have Andrew use a charge to try to throw any of his cards into the fray, but now we'll move to dice combinations. I'm going to use a dodge card from her hand. I'm mainly using this because, of course, I know this result, the danger die is going to kick us, is going to have us spending a die from her available pool that she doesn't have, which is going to force her to sacrifice a die, which is going to force another injury. We don't want that, so we're going to go ahead and match this red icon right here to this die combination down below, discarding a danger die from the roll pool. So this is gone. This right here doesn't trigger anything on her wounded card, which is great, and we only have 1 here, which is A-OK. That will progress us on the track 1 position. So we didn't get a ton out of that, but we at least got something and didn't get hurt. I am so glad that none of those icons across the top match the sector or POI card we are currently in, because that suit puncture would have been terrible. And at the top, instead, we're going to be progressing the time track, which is going to push the global condition to its final space. And I've been very curious as to what's going to happen now moving to GO2. The global condition has changed. It states the crystalline structure begins to emit sudden gamma flashes should we take shelter. It says all dice checks gain the following special effect: an alert symbol plus an alert symbol coming off the dice rolled in your die pool. You're going to be rolling on the danger chart, and that's going to be in chart A. So that's not good. That is going to ramp things up a little bit in terms of danger. And then down below, you'll see the travel requirements have changed now to dice check still, but in this case you can either spend a red or blue die to move the connected sector. If you can't spend a red or blue, you have to spend 2 of any color. On top of all this, we also have a new time track here in the bottom right hand corner of the global condition card, which will take us to log 500 when it reaches its end. All right, so at this point we're going to go ahead and activate Andrew next. We're going to go ahead and drop our supplies down from 2 to 1 in order to rest. Here's the dice that I brought back for Andrew. Also got a dodge card here. I'll have to decide if I want to discard something. And with that rest out of the way, let's go ahead and move from the current position I'm in up north here to the melted cityscape. Let's go ahead and roll our danger die and see how we do. We got ourselves... Oh, I love that icon when it shows up. That is a roll on the A chart, and that means nothing happens. What does happen is an event card. We have quicksand here. Do the icons line up? No, they do not. So we are going to be progressing time tracks. We have a brand new one, so it's getting its first marker. Just like that, we're beginning to progress on the global condition time track, heading towards log 500. We start a brand new round. This time I'm going to start off with Andrew, who's going to move using this icon in between the 2 sectors. And we know now we can spend a red die or a blue die to move to the connected sector. And I have those dice available, so I'm going to go ahead and spend 1 blue die. And now that we've made it to this sector, we're going to take a special action here, make a dice check. We've got a red and a blue die here. Remember, the things we don't want to see on this dice based on the global condition card now is 2 alert icons. It's these icons. We do not want to see 2 of those. And unlike last time where I forgot to discard a success token to do this, I'm doing it right now because you must discard it to perform this action. So I've done that right here. Let's go ahead. I do have cards to mitigate my roll here as well, so that should hopefully help me. Nice. That's a good, solid roll. And that was absolutely worth it. We were able to gain 3 supplies. We've gone from 1 back up to 4, which is awesome, giving us some more supplies to do more resting. At this point, our turn is done. We're going to grab an event card off the top of the deck and see what we get for Andrew. A little bit concerned here. Hopefully it's nothing too terrible. We got ourselves Corrosive Rain. That definitely doesn't sound good. Does it match a symbol, though? It does not. So another time track increase. This time track is going to be progressing at a pretty fast rate. I don't think there's as many positions as the prior one. Let's move on with Rika's turn. She's going to go ahead and rest. So we're going to drop our supplies from 4 down to 3. She'll be able to drop a section card. She gets to add it right to her hand because she has a limit of 3. She's got 2 currently. So safety protocols going in. We get to take 2 of the dice and bring them back for the available pool. So we'll probably take the same 2 we had last time, these 2, and slot them in. We're not going to go ahead and take the Buried Signal special action here. So a dice check, we're going to grab our green die, a red die. We have an injury die going in and a danger die. It's also worth mentioning I do have this functional nano dust for a red and a blue, which if we get far enough up on the green track, I'm going to use it as part of the die pool in order to progress this thing, hopefully to completion, because I'm really terrified of where Rika currently sits. I'm even terrified of this upcoming roll because, well, there's bad things that can trigger not only on these 2 dice with double alert symbols, but also this one and this one. All of these could be triggering multiple wound situations on her, or just things she is going to have a tough time mitigating. She does have some cards in hand that can help her do some rerolls, but these 2 dice are the ones I'm the most scared of. Let's go ahead and roll them and see how we do. Fate is not in our hands right now. I don't think that we have any control over what's about to happen here, but we might be able to mitigate some of the pain and suffering. Let's see how we do. Oh, that's really rough. Actually, no, that's okay. That is okay. So these 2 are not going to hurt me. And this, okay, I can work with this. This is a decent roll. At this point, I have no reason to modify the die results or to check for any dice combinations. I'm pretty happy with what I got here. I'm going to be using all my dice to progress the track here. So we'll go ahead and resolve everything. So this does not hurt us at all, being that we're rolling on the A chart. And this one doesn't trigger our wounds, so these can be removed from the equation. The injury one goes back, of course, to my available column at the very top. And then these 2 are going to go ahead and push the track up by 2. But I'm also, at this point during the planetary exploration, going to put this into the pile, which is going to allow me to get a red and a blue on top of all this, progressing this 4 spaces all the way to the very end and log 22. Now, just before we continue, I want to talk about something I mentioned in the video in a comment earlier when we got our 3rd point of interest card here that was a P113 card. You remember we did the Buried Signals card and we did it twice? That's not normal. Now, my advanced copy that I got very early on in the crowdfunding campaign in order to do some coverage actually had a misprint in it, and that's the one I'm using right now. It's worth mentioning that any prints after that don't have this issue. So that's the large majority of everybody else. So just me, special in this situation. So I noticed this quite quickly and realized I wasn't able to progress any further because after doing all 3 point of interest cards here that I had in my game, which was one which was medical facility, I believe, and then the other 2 were the Buried Signal cards, then I would have completed my main objective here, and that's kind of a wall I would hit right there. But it's because I didn't have a Strip Mines card, which should have been one of my Buried Signal cards. And this one would lead me to log 9. So we're going to go there right now. What's a little bit more painful about this for me is I did the Buried Signals card twice, which was a progression on a track, which in my opinion is tougher than resolving this Strip Mines card. So I put myself probably in a tougher situation than you might even be in. But we're going to move through this one as if I already resolved it, and we're going to go straight to log 9.
Look at this. What were they digging for?
Lime. The walls and piles contain mostly calcium oxide and calcium hydroxide. I guess they were making concrete.
Enough concrete to fill a small sea.
The the app at this point tells us to make changes to a couple things on this side of the planet board. So at this point, the Doomsday Sphere shows up here in Sector 6, and our mission progresses as we discard Mission 21 and we go to Mission 22. This mission is called the Final Effort. Wherever we go, we see signs of the massive construction effort the civilization undertook in its final weeks. But what were they building and where? The roads and transport systems point to an area not far from here. The objective is to find and unlock the Doomsday Sphere. Completion is when you fulfill the objective, you'll be asked to discard this one. And we know the Doomsday Sphere is in Sector 6. It is protected from seismic movements by an intricate system of giant springs and pistons, shielded with a thick shell of super hard alloy. This sphere must house something important. Rika's turn is now done. She pulls an event card and gets Thieving Creature. None of the icons match the icon at the current sector or point of interest card, and so because of this, we're going to be upping the time tracks. So we move the time track marker one more space down as we get closer to log 500. Let's go ahead and begin another round of play. We're going to go ahead and start things off with Andrew. Andrew's first action is going to be to rest, bringing him back 3 dice to his available area. He's also going to get to drop a section card. He got himself Focus. We'll have to decide whether we like this versus anything else he has, but I think we're actually going to let it go because I do like what's going on here, and I don't believe we need this right now, so we'll put Focus in the discard pile. For my second action, I'm going to have Andrew move from this location into this location. Again, in order to do so, I'm going to have to spend a red or a blue die. And if I don't have those, then I'm going to have to spend 2 of any color. I do have a blue die, so I'll go ahead and spend it. Unfortunately, I really don't want to because it's one that's going to eventually match up with this icon here, but we can try and get it back later on. So we'll spend that in order to move us to the next location. The whole group is together again, and we're going to go ahead and draw an event card and see how Andrew does. We got ourselves Floating Debris. Is this going to match anything going on in this location? It does not. So another increase on the time track. So the track is going to progress 1 more space. We are 2 away from log 500. Rika's going to begin her turn by spending supplies as well, dropping us from 2 down to 1 to rest. Here are the 2 dice that I brought back for Rika. Kind of funny though, you'll see in a moment that it costs 2 just to move from where we're at into the Doomsday Sphere location. So essentially this rest basically becomes kind of a wash for her. She does get a new card though, so we'll go ahead and pick that up. Do we want to keep this one versus anything else we have? Good question. I'm going to choose to discard it and keep the ones that I have. I like what they are, and we're going to go ahead, of course, and move. That's going to cost us 2 dice back to the spend pool in order to do so. And all this does, moving her from this location to here for the cost of 2 spent dice, is to get her in a space where she can help or assist Andrew, as I mentioned. Now we're going to go ahead and draw an event card. We got an event that's called Violent Current. However, the icons don't match anything on the POI or sector, so time is increasing yet again. I've increased the marker, and now you can see we are just 1 away from log 500. Starting off a brand new round, we're going to go ahead with Andrew first, and he's going to use the last supply that we have in order to rest. Now I'm taking a look ahead at different icons that we're going to need to be successful at the Doomsday Sphere. So this icon is a good one to have. Obviously we already have the double Vanguard, which is great. The pickaxe is another one, and I don't believe we have anything else that will pair up. So we'll take this one back for 1. And again, remember you're taking back 3 because we have a total of 6 dice. You could half round it up. So we're going to get 1 back here. We'll go ahead and look at this. The shield's not going to help us in terms of the conversion, so it doesn't matter if we grab the green one or not. We might as well look at our hand, though, to see if we have anything that can help us. We could potentially be looking for something that might allow us to get a Vanguard symbol. So blues, greens, and any color are good. So maybe I'll go ahead and take a green back just for that reroll to see if we can land a Vanguard off of it. And then 1 more from there. Tough call. I guess we will go with blue. The section card we get after resting is this one. We already have a dodge. I'm pretty confident we're not going to need this one, so we'll go ahead and discard it. And now we're going to move. In order to get into this section, we're going to have to spend 2 dice. So 2 of the ones that I was eyeing at keeping are disappearing. So we'll spend these 2 dice in order to move Andrew down to the same space as Rika. Andrew's turn is over, an event card comes, and it's called Stuck, and it does actually match one of the icons that's on the POI card. And so because of this, we have to either sacrifice a die or progress all time tracks by 1. If we do the time track option, we're going to be going to log 500 on the global conditions card. Now, when you choose to sacrifice a die, you can do it from your available dice or your spent pool. So I'm picking one from my spent pool. You might be wondering, why are you doing this? Well, based on the information that we've been told throughout this play so far, it sounds like when that global condition triggers, it's not going to be good. And I don't want it to happen. Plus, I'm in the location where I need to make the major checks in order to win. And I think I can pull it off without this 6th die. Now, I'm very much in a tricky position here with Rika because she cannot do anything if she doesn't have any dice to spend. We can't travel, we can't rest because we have no more supplies, we can't prepare because we can't roll any available dice, we can't lift off from here, and at this point the only thing we can choose to do, which is not an action, is to exert ourselves. And when we do this, at any moment in the game we can choose to exert to sacrifice a chosen die. Again, it can come from your available area or your spent pool, and then if you have 3 or fewer dice, you gain an exhausted injury instead. So if we're going to exert ourselves right now in order to refresh 5 dice, we don't lose a die because we're at the 3 threshold. Instead, we're taking an injury. So exerting myself does not count as an action. At this point, we're going to take the special action on the Doomsday Sphere. Now, Rika at this point has 2 injuries, and on the exhausted injury she just took in order to exert herself and get some extra dice back to be able to accomplish some tasks, she does get an additional injury die when she makes dice checks. So she's going to go for a special action here. She's bringing 2 injury dice into the equation. Now, I got to be smart about this. I don't want to push her too hard. I'll probably keep 1 die back so that I have something to spend if things go south here, but it's obviously making it more and more risky to have more injury dice as part of this equation. Also worth noting, the wound card or wound injury triggers on this symbol, and the exhausted one triggers on this one. What the exhausted injury will trigger on is if it gets this icon when we're placing injury dice across our injury cards, it will actually progress the bottom row if it is available, which is pretty brutal because it could have us drawing and resolving an event card, and that's not good. And not just that, you'll also see on the green icon here at the bottom, it has an arrow pointing backwards, meaning it'll actually move the green progress marker back 1 space. Now, I may have already touched on this, but I'm not going to have any assist come into play here. Even though Andrew's in the same space, I might use one of his cards to assist, but I'm not going to add a die into the equation because I don't want to increase the odds. We're going to end up with a double alert off any of the colored dice we have, because again, we have this special effect over here that if we get 2 alerts, we got to roll the danger die. Now, I do have ways to mitigate things, but I'm still not going to risk it, especially with how beat up Rika currently is. So let's go ahead and roll these dice and see how this goes. I'm a little bit terrified, to be completely honest, but I think she needs to progress this a little bit, and then we can maybe have Andrew come in and finish it off. Here we go. I certainly didn't expect to get that bad of a roll off the injury dice. We'll be dealing with that later on. That's terrifying. But in terms of the roll of the red and green die, we only got 1 alert symbol. So thank goodness we'll be able to avoid that danger die special effect. But I want to go ahead right now and spend this respite card as we're in the section of the dice check for modifying results, where I'm going to try and re-roll this in order to get a symbol that can actually help us on the green track. That's what we're looking for, because this is going to progress the red track, and we don't want that. So let's go ahead and re-roll this and hope for better outcome. That's much better. Now, in this case, we're going to go ahead and resolve our injury dice, and unfortunately, in terms of how we resolve them, well, they're pretty clean cut, with the wounded card here on the left, exhausted on the right. Basically, if we have any matching symbols for these icons, we place 1 on the matching card and resolve its effect. So in this case, this one's going to go right here. It's going to have a spend a die. Thank goodness I kept one over here so we can do so. And then this one is going to go on this card, and it tells us we're going to have to go ahead and sacrifice a die, as we know we can't sacrifice anywhere below 3 that we have overall. And so because of this, we gain another exhausted injury. And with that, Rika is 1 wound away from death, which is not good. As you'll even see right here when you place a card here, injury card caution, high probability of dying, just giving you a heads up that things are about to go south on you. Again, you're rolling a ton of injury dice going forward on dice checks. That's certainly not going to be in your favor. Currently, it's not all bad news, because at least we did get 2 successful results. Both icons can be used in order to progress the green track. So we are going to take a marker, place the first success on the first space and the second success on the second space, giving Andrew a little bit of a leg up as he goes into his turn in the future. But we do have 1 more action left here with Rika. For my second and final action, I'm not doing anything crazy with Rika. I'm simply just going to go ahead and prepare. I'm going to choose to draw up a card. You can choose to draw a card and do a dice check, or just do one or the other. I'm choosing just to draw up a card. It'll go into her hand no problem, as she has 2 currently, now up to 3. Oh, this is a really bad event card to get right now. This one does match an icon on the point of interest, so Rika just pulled low visibility. She's going to have to resolve the main portion of this card. She is not going to be resolving the increase on the time track, which would have pushed this into log 500. Who knows what kind of terrible things would have happened with that too, but this sounds just as bad, because the choice we have before us is losing a supply or to roll the danger die. Now, we cannot choose, when we have an option like this, something we can't do. We don't have any more supplies, which means we have to roll the danger die. So, where are we rolling? We're rolling on the A chart. There's an A, that's a tiny little A inside that danger die icon. If we take a look at the reference card here, that's bad. And you know why that's bad? Because if you take a look at the A section in the top left, both icons that we happen to roll here from this die, which are 5 of the 8 icons, which is insane, are going to result in a really, really bad outcome. We have one option, which will have us spending a die which we don't have in our available pool, which causes us to sacrifice a die, and then of course we can't sacrifice a die because we're at the limit of 3 dice, in terms of the lowest limit we can have of 3 dice, so we have to gain an injury, which would be our 4th. Boom. That triggers an emergency evac, and you'll see way up there in the top right-hand corner, Pellucid, it mentions evac log 372. We would be going down that trail of fun. Don't know what's there, but I don't want to find out. And then the one underneath of it, the other option we could potentially roll with the dual tail off the icon there, is gaining a wounded injury, which puts us at the exact same situation. So 5 out of the 8 sides are bad. The other 3 are okay. So here goes. Are you guys feeling lucky? Because I certainly am a little bit stressed. This might go well, or it might go south, but we're about to find out which way. Oh, we're safe. That was insane. And I mean, when I say I'm safe for now. We are on the bleeding edge of bad things happening. I need to progress this track as fast as possible. We're beginning another player turn here. Let's go ahead and start things off, obviously, with Andrew, who's in much better shape, and he's going to put everything he's got into trying to push for success here. What an absolutely crazy playthrough to get on camera. This is a lot of fun. All right, let's see if we can go ahead and try to progress this in a way that's going to work out for us. So right off the hop here, luckily, we don't have to rest because we do still have dice here with Andrew. He's got his double Vanguard, which 1 in 6 chance of landing that for 2 successes. We have the wrench icon. All of that could be useful here, which is fantastic. The wrench, the flexing bicep, and the gathering icon. We have all of those across his dice here because I set him up and made sure he had the dice he needed for a big roll, and man, do we ever need that right now. So we're going to be going ahead and going big. We're going to be putting absolutely everything in. We're going to put all 3 dice into the fray. Now, I do have cards with him which are great for re-rolling. I kept those as well. I've got one here to re-roll a green die, pretty useless right now. I also have stuffed dice combinations on the bottom too, but I'm primarily looking at the re-rolls to try to get to where I'm trying to get to here with the success. And I've got one I can re-roll any color, always good, and another one here re-rolling a blue. Very good when I have 2. So maybe we can dig for that Vanguard symbol. Okay, so the stress is about to mount even further as we need to make another roll and hope we get what we need because, like I said, time's running out. We don't have any more supplies. There's no more easy way around this. I mean, we can start exerting with Andrew. And actually, you know what? Now that I mention it, exerting may not be a bad idea. If I go ahead and exert, I lose a die. It doesn't cost me an action. I can bring back up to 5 dice, which really at this point would have me just bring back 1 die. But 1 die is better than none. And if I take a look at what he can convert, well, it's just green to shields. So that's not really going to help in this equation. But we could manage to get a Vanguard off one of these, and it might give us a little better odds. Plus extra dice to re-roll and whatever else. So maybe that's not a bad idea. Well, I'm committed to that idea. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to take this red one here. We're going to sacrifice it as we're kind of going all in. And we're going to go ahead and bring this one into the available area, which is then going to become part of his first action spend to make a dice check against this location, a special action to try and open the sphere. If there was ever a time for a really big successful roll, this is probably the best time for it to happen. We could try to draw this out even further, and Andrew could go ahead and exert himself over a period of turns. Of course, at a certain point, he'll start taking exhaustion injuries, but that's why I'm saying this roll really needs to do some serious progress to this, and I'm hoping to full-on complete it. So let's hope for that. So let's go ahead and grab all these dice. We're going to make a roll. We're going to hold our breath. Again, in terms of what Rika can do, she could potentially assist card-wise by playing a card into the fray in order to help, but doesn't have any available dice to add into the pool, unfortunately. She already kind of went crazy. All right, here we go. Let's see how we do. Come on, dice, be on my side. I want to see it like a double Vanguard. That would really make me happy. Oh, we got a Vanguard. Oh, it's not terrible. It's not terrible. Okay, so we need one more to push this through. Andrew's going to go ahead and spend his Respite card, which allows him to reroll a die of any color. He's going to roll the alert symbol. And the other thing I got to mention here is I got lucky in the fact I didn't get 2 alerts. Because, I mean, that would have been a horrible thing to have to try and roll away, get a danger die into the fray and everything else. It might not have hurt Andrew as much, but it still would have been annoying. So glad I didn't get those. Okay, we're going to roll this. We're going to hope to see. And again, this is a good die to roll because, look, this icon is one that could work here, plus the Vanguard that's on it could also work. So the odds are decent, although I just said that out loud, so I probably jinxed myself. Here we go. Nope, we are good. It is so nice to have a crew member that does not have any injuries on them, so there's no injury dice to ever have to roll into the fray, plus this particular special action does not have us rolling a danger die, so we didn't have anything nasty as part of this equation we had to mitigate, and that's huge. So this is just a simple resolve. We're able to go ahead. Now, at this point, I could mince and, rework the die that I got here. Maybe I want to go ahead and use a dice combination. You can see here I had a card in hand that I could spend this icon instead, because I have 3 right here, which can successfully get us to the end of this, but this one becomes kind of like nothing, doing not much. But I could use it for a dice combination to discard a danger die. So if I did have a danger die, a card like that in your hand, paired with a successful result like that, where the icons match in the combo, can be very beneficial, but that stuff did not line up for Rika in terms of dealing with all the insanity she had to deal with. So let's go ahead and progress this marker all the way to the end and go to 240 and find out what happens.
Captain's log, entry D427.
To the unknown creatures from the distant past in this distant world, I salute you. When our team finally began to crack the dome's inner layer, we expected a myriad of things. An ark, an archive, a vault, created by the people of this world to carry their legacy beyond the apocalypse. Yet again, we were wrong. Inside, encased in protective carbon nanofoam, was an object as old as this planet. A stele that predated this civilization by millions of years. With her last dying effort, these creatures protected an artifact from an even older time, as resigned to the thought that all their history and culture, and even their very lives, were less important than this one cracked relic. I keep wondering whether humans would be capable of such sacrifice. The object they saved for us bears a clear resemblance to the architecture of the Eye of the Void. There's no doubt the builders who created the Eye, and our star map, also left this stone as they spread life to this planet. What does it mean for us? Are there other steles like this on other planets? Was there one on Earth? The sides of the stele contain code we have yet to unravel, but atop it, we found one large symbol, alien, yet familiar. A glyph that seems to symbolize uplifting, raising up, with several small dots scattered at its base. This last piece of the puzzle helped us understand some strange discoveries on this planet. The first evolved species here uplifted many other species through genetic engineering and bionic modifications, something that would never cross the minds of humans back on Earth. We will have plenty of time to ponder this and to study the stele on our journey to the next world. Let us hope this time we find more than just ashes.
I couldn't be happier seeing this at the end of that log. Congratulations, you've completed the mission, and as you saw moments ago, we scroll through this page, taking a look at everything we gain and get to move forward with. We did it, and probably just in the nick of time. Now let's talk about all the good things we get out of completing this mission. The first one is to move R06, which is a research project called Builder's Landmark, from the research project's area of the card tray to the awaiting envelope. So this card here on the left that I just placed in the center is going to go into the awaiting bag. Then we're going to move O02, an objective from eons past, from the bridge card section, and it's a small card, to the awaiting envelope. As it mentions in the app, on many planets, you must return to your lander after fulfilling your objective. That would have been absolutely brutal in this situation. But here, we simply just have to place all of our crew member models back in the lander sector, Sector 1. You're not going to hear me complaining about my crew members getting a free trip back to Sector number 1 in order to get on the lander. That's awesome. The next thing we do is remove L1, the landing card, which is in the scanner. You can see it there at the very bottom of the shot. And we're going to remove it from the game because another landing on this planet is no longer possible. Next, if there are any unique discoveries left on the planet board, we discard a success if we have any, and then we gain the discovery. So basically, if we weren't able to accomplish grabbing those unique discoveries, we just have to pay a success to get them. In this case, we were able to obtain them, so we don't have to lose any more successes. But as you remember, I actually lost a couple successes as I needed to recoup supplies while we were on this planet just to get me to the end of this thing. It was pretty tight. Now, the app also makes mention of an important note around each unique discovery only being found on one specific planetary exploration in the game. However, if you miss a unique discovery during your exploration, there's always an option to either return to the planet to find it, or in rare cases, to gain it via other means later on in the campaign. Now, in this case, it defaults to always making sure that you can gain these 2 unique discoveries. You may not get all of them every single time on your first visit of any planet. And that's going to complete a very successful planetary exploration of Pellucid from ISS Vanguard from Awaken Realms. Really hope you guys enjoyed what you saw throughout this planetary exploration. At this point, you now wrap back around where we began our showcase with the shipbook. We're going to go into the shipbook for page 25, which is all about leaving the planet, and you begin ship management and continue your journey from there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed this, and as always, keep on rolling solo.